Grover! Grover!
Yes, sir?
Get me something to play. I'm feeling analytical.
Very good, sir. Might I suggest something from 2006? It was a particularly good year.
I like the sound of that. Any suggestions?
How about Drakengard 2?
Yes, the people have been asking for that. Let's do it. Barry Skoda, what are you doing here? I killed you during that Lollipop Chainsaw video that nobody watched.
Yes, and it hurt like hell.
You're kind of missing the point. Aren't you meant to be dead?
Yes, but as long as there are Chavs, Poverty and Jeremy Kyle, I will never truly be dead. I can be annoyed though, and I'm very annoyed, so I'm going to inconvenience you. What are you doing anyway?
Well, I was gonna do Drakengard 2 and then get drunk.
Perfect. You're not going to do that though. I'm going to make you analyse the unanalysable. I'm going to sit here and watch you squirm.
I don't follow.
I know what you're like. You can't resist a challenge. If I try and get you to find the plot of something that doesn't even have a plot, you'll be unable to resist. You'll tear yourself apart trying to find a meaning, and it'll hurt you even more than it hurt me when I was atomised.
You wouldn't. Not when I'm about to do Drakengard 2.
Oh, wouldn't I? Tetris.
Easy. Failures pile up while accomplishments disappear.
Dr. Mario.
Only take the correct antibiotics when suffering from a bacterial infection.
Bomberman.
Bombs are great fun, except when you're at the airport or backed into a corner. Next.
Bigwigs.
You're the ghost of a trucker who has died at the roadside.
I'm going to need some explanation for this.
Think about it. The truck in the initial release never moves. It's the coffin of the driver. Well, you play as a ghost truck, not bound by the laws of physics, but only by imagination. The narrow world ends because that's the space in which you died. The race is just your ghostly form's way of coping, of representing the world.
Okay then. Ooh, Ride to Hell Retribution.
Oh no. Oh no.
What's wrong?
What do you mean what's wrong? What, are you blind? Jesus! Barry Skoda! You've done it now! You've done it now, Barry Skoda! You're gonna die! You're gonna die! God damn it! This isn't a show for insanity! Oh no! You're fucking dead! This is ultra intellectual!
Well, we could just do Drakengard 2. I mean, you were going to do Drakengard 2.
There was a time when I was not the man you see before you today. I had a wife and kids, Barry. Well, technically they may not have been mine. The court case is ongoing. I'd never touched a woman. They had touched me, but then you do get what you pay for. The point is, it was a different time. A time of frolicking in opium fields, carefree picnics, Sundays with Pokemon Snap. And then I played Ride to Hell Retribution. And that all changed.
Bang! This is incredible. They're still trying to work themselves.
No, you definitely can't power slide into that.
Oh, I've broken the game.
Yeah, you got under it. Good job. Oh,
No, I failed.
You failed. You failed again. Hang on. Oh, what? Where's the colour gone? What happened to colour? Oh my god! I think you failed.
Strap yourself in, Barry. I cannot convey this game to you in just one sentence. No, Grover. Now is not the time. Sit, Barry. You have started something that cannot be stopped. And by Miyamoto, I'm taking you with me.
So when did you get a butler anyway?
Good afternoon and welcome to Finding the Plot. You know the rest. The game begins in an explosive fashion. Mounted guns, combat QTEs, violent shootings, riding bikes over helicopters.
I like this. It's like COD, what with all the shooting. There's QTEs like God of War, and shooting people and driving around like in GTA. This will be good, I don't know what you were worried about.
We go back 10 days. That's right, this was our hero, Jake, riding off, looking back fondly at things that have happened. Things that we'll get to see soon.
We're going to do all of these cool things? I can't wait.
Jake is in an army base, thinking, remembering war as we listen into his thoughts. An army major tells him that it's time.
It's time.
Jake is leaving the Vietnam War and is being met by his uncle Mac. The quick cuts show us that this game has a short attention span. It wants to fly from one development to the next, just like Jake, who, as you'll see, is unable to settle down. The misshapen, grotesque bodies of the characters represent how Jake's war-damaged mind sees the world. Everybody is a plasticine monster, twisted by horrors that he has experienced. Mac's line, "You look like shit,"
You look like shit, Jake.
displays a self-awareness shown by few games. He too has seen horrors in his own time. He understands what Jake sees, and what Jake has become, a monster in a world of monsters.
You're reading too far into this game.
Am I? Am I?
Oh, don't kill me again!
Mac says that Jake's brother Mikey is,
Back of the house.
which as it turns out is right next to the bus stop. So why did Mac say back at the house? It might seem like a strange thing to say, but remember, Ride to Hell is the story of a man who has been twisted by war. To him, everything in life is a journey to be overcome. What might be just here, to you and me, is
Back of the house.
to him. So is Jake really hearing what Mac said, or are we hearing what their words mean to Jake? What is real?
Or it could just be poor script writing.
I think not. If this were a turd, it is too perfectly formed. It's too neat, too intentional. It's all by some design, it has to be.
It's not that bad.
You've seen nothing yet.
Well, if you're going to spend the whole game doing this, let me at least have some fun with it. He calls Mikey a sack of shit and offence registers on his face. This is not the welcome that Mikey wanted. Jake has become cold in his absence. He doesn't care about his brother or his feelings. All he sees is a twisted freak for whom he feels no warmth. But notice how Jake didn't care when Mac called him a shit, but Mikey does. Mikey is the only innocent character in the game, the only one who, while appearing like shit to Jake on the outside, is still inwardly a human.
If only you knew how right you were. Later that night, Jake voices that he isn't happy about waiting around doing nothing, and says he'd rather be polishing boots. He is missing the war. They talk about a girl who's been hanging around with Mikey, Ellie. He wants to go out, but Mac doesn't want him to go out after dark. Jake offers to accompany Mikey, but it turns out that he's gone off of his own accord, so Jake gives chase. This brings us to our first real bit of gameplay, a motorcycle section down a bizarrely unfinished, dangerous road.
Like Road Rash?
You wish. Mikey smashes through obstacles with gay abandon, and we understand that again, we're seeing the world through Jake's eyes. He has a form of tunnel vision where, to a normal person, we would see a normal road with some machinery. Everything is closing in on Jake. This tunnel vision is in his mind, and we see the road as he sees it. One straight line, Mikey his only target. The machinery represents obstacles, a kind of claustrophobia, a distorted perception of space, of reality.
So, is Jake on LSD?
Pardon?
Well, I've got this friend, and he's taken LSD a few times. And well, people have taken on the same kind of appearance as the guys in this. You know, looking a bit weird, misproportionate, big hands. And the way you just described the world, making no real sense with a weird spatial awareness, sounds like he's tripping balls.
Perhaps that's what Jake has done. He's resorted to drugs to try and help his post-war stress. The obstacles in the road are clustered together in his mind, but not in reality. This is why Mikey can smash through them, but why we, as Jake, have to avoid them at all costs. And when contact is made, all that happens is you kind of blank out, or this. Anyway, Jake catches up and they chat some more about Ellie, with Mike expressing how he likes her for being smart. When he goes to get a burger, a gang shows up and tries to start trouble. One of the gang spots
Mikey's haircut.
What?
Well, he asked where he got that cut. That haircut. That's nice of him.
No, you moron, he means that symbol on the back of Mikey's vest.
Well, there's no need to be rude.
Well, shut up. As they go, Mikey is confused about the question, and Jake says that they were left by their parents to go live with Mac for a good reason, which might be to do with the gang, the Devil's Hand. As they ride back, we get more weird bike action which defies physics, and gang members attack in more scenes reminiscent of Road Rash. I would love to be playing Road Rash right now.
We could be, but you're stubborn.
Either way, they get cornered by the Devil's Hand. They seem to think that our heroes are part of a gang called Retribution, who they believed to be dead. Mikey spills the beans that the jacket belongs to their father, William Toledo Conway. Upon hearing this, one of the bad guys slashes Mikey's neck, and the screen goes black and white as they shoot at either Jake or Mikey. When colour returns, we get Mac's voice saying that Jake hasn't recovered from the bullet he took.
Wait, what just happened? Did Jake get shot?
Yes.
And he's okay? How many days has he taken to recover? He looked like he got shot a few times.
I guess the drugs helped him shrug it off. I don't know how much time has passed or how hurt he is. All I know is that he doesn't seem to be fussed by it. The direction is strange, no doubt about it, but you must understand that we are seeing the twisted world of a man with shell shock, or some sort of mental disorder. Perhaps it's all to do with the drugs he's undoubtedly taken, especially seeing how into drug dealing he is later in the game. The point is that we're merely passengers in his head. Well, the most important thing, though, is that Jake now has a mission, to kill every member of the Devil's Hand. Well, he did say he was bored just sitting about. En route to this, we once again get to experience Jake's questionable grip on reality.
Bike sliding!
This is amazeballs!
Simply put, we must be playing as an insane drug-addled fool, because no way is this possible. Or that.
You say drug-addled fool, I say I want to give hugs to everyone who made this game so cool.
I'm embarrassed for you, that was horrible.
Sorry, but I can't hear you over the sound of this awesome sliding.
The game now settles into something of a routine. Jake shows up and battles identical thugs who seem to be only inhabitants of this world. Seriously, there are only 3 or 4 different character models in this game, which is an obvious sign of his grip on reality. Anybody who he views as an enemy resembles the guys who killed his brother. He kills them, gains information about where a dead-hand lieutenant lives, then moves on. In this case, he bumps into a woman known only as Prostitute, and she comes onto him, at least in his head. This exchange tells us an important thing about Jake. He's a misogynist. He sees women as nothing but meat, and men as nothing but targets. Indeed, it isn't long before he bumps into another prostitute, who is presumably about to be raped. This is rewarded instantly with a jump cut to this.
Sexy time? Wait a second, why is she wearing clothes? What's going on?
The important thing is just how messed up this is.
I know, clothes! Where's the boobs?
This woman was about to be raped. There's no way of dressing that up nicely. Are you seriously telling me that a woman in that position would suddenly jump from fear for her life, fear for her body, and jump straight into bed with a stranger? A bigger, more frightening stranger who killed her would-be rapist? A decent man would shelter her, would call the cops, do something.
Okay, I can see how that is messed up. Should we move on?
No, because this is actually genius. It perfectly encapsulates Jake's problem.
That he's really sick in the head.
That his mission to avenge Mikey is a ruse. And yes, that he's sick in the head.
His brother was killed, though.
And Jake doesn't really care. Look, at the start, he rocks as the sounds of war go off around him. That's not him shell-shocked from war as such as it's him dreading going back to the real world. Those bombs and gunshots are a lullaby for him. The ride to hell in the title refers to riding back to civilian life. He says he's bored doing nothing. He wants excitement. Mikey's death is an excuse. Yes, he's annoyed that his brother died, but he's still a sack of shit. He's nothing more than blood, not a person. So Jake goes off on a murder rampage. He has a target, a purpose. Granted, you could still say that it's all for Mikey, but he's pursuing somebody with important information about the identity of his killers. And what does he do? He stops to have sex with a woman who is just about to be sexually assaulted. I don't know about you, Barry, but I can't have sex quickly enough to be sure I wouldn't lose the guy I'm chasing.
So your point is?
My point is that Jake is just doing stuff. He's doing it for fun, because he can, because he's so off his rocker on drugs that he either thinks actual sex is done with clothes on, or he's dry humping the woman thinking he's having actual sex, and that she's enjoying it when she's probably crying her eyes out. Jake is tired of enduring his life, the life we're playing, and is instead doing all the things he'd rather be doing because he's a douche.
Well, do you think he's reliving what he probably did in Vietnam? Kill a man and claim the woman?
Exactly.
Like how if I wanted a good sex scene, I'd be playing God of War or GTA with the hot coffee mod. At least I get boobs.
He chases Anvil, the lieutenant, to a brewery in which he locks himself. To get in, he has to get a wedding ring back from the woman's husband, which involves violence and dry humping. Jake then arms himself with the aid of a man called Tyrell, who has a magic-appearing beard and his strange teleporting lieutenants. Again a sign of drugs. And then heads back to the brewery. There he meets Mac, who he asks to cover the rear. Mac fails and Anvil gets away, but not before Jake tags him with a bullet, allowing them to follow the blood. They kill Anvil, who reveals that their boss wants all the Conways dead. Jake wonders what to do next, and Mac has 2 ideas. Either going to a boxing event to fight the promotion's star fighter Meathook, who also works for the Devil's Hand, or to visit Dr. Blotter, the man who provides the Devil's Hands with their drugs. Let's go to Blotter first.
Blotter, drugs, got it.
The strange thing about Dr. Blotter is that Jake already knows all about him, because he's sold drugs to him. He knows who he is, and in fact he's a short walk from where Jake parks his bike and where he lives. Of course, he might not know that Blotter sells drugs to the Devil's Hand, but what makes this situation so strange is that Jake drives all the way from his house, down the road, then all the way back to where he lives, just to meet with a guy who he had just been selling drugs to. Of course, the only way to explain this is once again drugs and insanity. He wants Jake to do him a favour, which involves delivering a package and killing people, and also sex on a pool table. Once again, it hammers home how Jake honestly does not care about his brother's death. You just don't do that if you do. The trail of death leads him to an aircraft graveyard, where he kills Colt, the guy who asked about Mikey's logo. He says it's for his brother, the liar. Next, he sells some drugs and goes to investigate Meathook, which takes him to Coyote Rock, where he meets this old guy, Farley, who is being beaten up. Farley is an old fighter. Jake helps him and Farley is impressed by his fighting skills. Jake says that he hears that he can use his skills in a boxing tournament.
Does Farley have useful information that he'll only exchange for a favour? Because saving his life through combat is hardly a favour.
Exactly, that favour is that he has to race and beat Farley.
Wait, so Farley sees Jake combat skills, but doesn't think he's good enough to survive in the boxing ring. But if he's a good racer, he'll obviously be a good fighter? That doesn't make sense. I mean, it's great that they're finding ways to shoehorn their racing gameplay in, but...
Just think about how many drugs Jake is on. I don't think any of this is actually happening quite as he thinks it is. If it is, then he's murdered the world's largest brood of identical twins. What's important to the narrative is that Jake is just doing reckless stuff rather than avenging his brother. He's racing his bike when he could have beaten the information out of Farley. Heck, Jake could have attacked the boxing joint and won. He's done similar loads before. He doesn't need Farley to speak for him. He wants to race. He wants to have sex. He's doing everything he wants to, and Mikey is his excuse. He massacres his way to the boxing event, which just happens to be running.
I'm confused.
Why?
Well, why are people attacking him? If they know he's coming and who he is, why is he allowed into the event? Why did he need Farley to speak for him when it's clearly pointless?
Maybe Farley never did. Maybe it never happened.
It annoys me that this is such a plausible answer. It's the only way to explain the texture melting on people. It's like breathing hands.
Breathing hands?
It's a drug thing I've heard about.
Jake enters the competition.
Now this fighting is really reminding me of how good Arkham City is. I wish I was playing Arkham City.
Can you stop interrupting me? Jake enters the competition and...
Well, I thought this was boxing. This isn't boxing. I should know. I used to do boxing down on the estate.
You did boxing? Really?
Well, I punch people for vodka.
I'll allow it. Jake fights his way to Meat Hook, who kills someone on the way to the ring to prove a point. You might wonder why this is all significant.
No, Seb. Nobody wonders that. It's obvious. He's a douche and he deserves to die regardless of how much a knob Jake is.
Pretty much.
He tells the strangely silent crowd of clones how good he is.
This one left his brother to die and didn't even bother to lift a finger to help the...
And then goads Jake about the murder of Mikey, so Jake beats him up. He demands to know who ordered the murder, but Meat Hook is killed by a Jedi or something, or a ninja. A Nin Jedi. Look at that blood! This is amazing! Hashtag amazeballs!
You are wildly inconsistent. To show how disconnected the real world is from Jake's delusions, we find that his final line of the scene, based on the subtitles, is different to what he actually says. This is our disconnect that proves that what he perceives and what is happening are two different things. So without any real leads, we see Greasy Steve talking to 666. Greasy Steve is the Eric Cantona lookalike from the boxing club. He says that Meat Hook messed up and that he had to kill him to stop him from spilling the beans. 666 tells him off for being so hasty and commands him to ambush and kill Jake. So Steve finds Jake at a truck stop. He challenges Jake to chase him to find out what he knows, leaving a blonde woman waiting. Jake chases Steve for a few miles before crashing. Look at all the cocaine coming out of his pockets as he flies. He goes back to the truck stop to fix his bike. There, the blonde girl Steve left behind moans about Steve abandoning her and demands that he takes her to the concert that she was going to see with him. Now, you may wonder what the point of the chase was if, failing it, still advances the plot as if the chase never happened, and again it emphasises how Jake has no real aim. Things are happening and he uses Mikey as his excuse. When they get to the party, blonde girl abandons Jake, who gets ambushed by some guys who are presumably expecting him, despite it not being Steve's plan for Jake to be there. Jake gets inside and the band are panicking about gunmen as a man with no gun fires it into the sky. Of course, he does have a gun really, but Jake is so insane, so off his mind on drugs that he cannot see guns, but he can see flying hats. Blonde girl and her friends are being held by the gunmen, and so they need saving.
And when he saves the woman, he has an orgy with all of them. I think he kills them. Look at them, they're dead. Claudine, the blonde woman, tells him that Greasy Steve will be in a race.
Is this why you're angry, Barry?
Yes! I'm not the one to complain normally. I mean, I like The Only Way is Essex and all that other stuff, but it speaks to me. But this is just too much. Jake chased Steve, and through sheer blind luck, it turns out that I guess every slut knows him and knows where he's going to be. So why bother? It just seems pointless. We were set up to fail a race that went a long way just so we could walk back to Steve's girlfriend, who happened to need a lift to a concert where people were waiting for him who just wanted to kill him. Which he didn't know about, I guess, but just, is Jake the only person who doesn't know where everyone is?
Or everything is falling into place because Jake is insane, off his face, and is piecing things together based on his own prejudices.
Sometimes I wish we could just get off our face when playing this stuff. It'd be a lot less painful.
Ellie?
Who's Ellie?
Calls Jake up and they discuss the race. Max says there's a guy he knows called Barnes who can sort out the bike. During the night, he massacres his way through a place called Lost Valley, which is basically a war zone, to find Barnes to fix up his bike.
But seriously, who's Ellie?
She's the girl Mikey liked, who looks like the Nirvana-era Dave Grohl.
So she does. On the way, he stops guys destroying a petrol station, although it's not clear why they're there doing it or why he cares.
He finds Barnes, who naturally will only help him if he can beat him in a race, during the day, outside of town. The road even has a race marker. He succeeds and Barnes gives him his engine. He beats Greasy Steve in a race and Steve tells him about 666 and King Dick, the two deputies of Pretty Boy, so Jake blows him up. He goes to find King Dick next, which involves rescuing a stripper from her boyfriend and getting a lap dance. While doing it, she tells him that King Dick is a pimp and you'll only find him around town. This leads him to a church where King Dick is displaying his severed finger collection, basically telling the guys not to fail him in killing Jake, or they'll lose their fingers too.
Though anybody who crosses Jake dies a horrible death anyway, because of all the context kills that make me wish I was playing Yakuza, or even Punisher.
So Jake defeats King Dick and demands to find out where Pretty Boy is. He then snaps his fingers while reciting this little piggy. Dick tells Jake to find Brandy, a woman who is working her way up Pretty Boy's ranks. Grateful, Jake drowns King Dick. Later, Jake is fixing up his bike while Ellie stands about. They exchange an awkward wave.
I cannot get Dave Grohl out of my head when I see her now. I hate you.
I know. 666 turns up and says that he's here for Jake. So determined they are that they run away when Max shows up. However, it's all a ruse, and they return in greater numbers, like sand people, to try and destroy the garage. Max says he knows 666, and that he owns a sawmill, so Jake goes off to the sawmill to kill him. On his way, he meets a French, Russian, German lumberjack who needs drug packages.
Always with the drugs. No wonder Jake can't see straight.
Jake does a bunch of errands for him and then eventually gets the information he needs.
Down, Fontaine! Read!
You better not be lying.
Why? Why does Jake keep threatening people, only to kill them anyway? Seems kind of pointless. It's the drugs, isn't it?
He finds 666 and chases after him.
Using the force. Look, he's not even holding the handlebars.
Another sign of how his grip on reality is failing. When he catches up with 666, notice how he squints his eyes to try and focus to see him properly, and how 666's details melt in. Yet another sign of him losing it. How many drugs is he on? How insane is he? 666 reveals that he knows of Jake's dad, that the boss wants his boys dead.
And what do you know about my father?
Enough to know that the boss wants his boys dead.
Why does Pretty Boy want me dead?
Pretty boy? Pretty boy? Don't you know anything? Caesar is the boss, idiot. He is the devil's hand.
Dun dun dun. Wait, literally the devil's hand? As in, actually, literally?
He eventually beats 666 and ties him to a wood chipper, dropping ash on him as he smokes. Torture! 666 reveals that Jake's dad was in the gang with Caesar. They fell out, and so Caesar wants every Conway dead.
When those guys out by the Dutch oven heard you were Toledo's boys, they did what they were told. Take you out.
Dutch oven. Really?
The restaurant where they got the burgers 10 days ago in game time.
Do they sell bed farts?
Yes. Yes, they do. 666 offers Jake drugs or money for his freedom. All Jake wants is information.
And drugs.
He finds out that the second biggest bad, Pretty Boy, is going to be at some race. Jake then starts the machine and 666 screams as he's wood chipped. Now, you might be wondering why he didn't just roll off the belt. Well, it's because he's too injured.
Well, he clearly isn't. He was wide awake and wriggling.
Well, it's because shut up. This game is the drug-fueled insanity of a man suffering PTSD, who is so concerned about his brother's murder that he stops to do menial errands when he could, and does beat info out of people, and has multiple orgies with all sorts of skanks. Sometimes there is no explanation. Sometimes things just are, okay? They just are, because when you're on a 10-day meth binge, things get a little bit crazy, okay? You think you're nursing the squirrels back to health, but it's really the kid you ran over. But you don't even drive. But why were you behind the wheel of the car? And why was the hooker dead? I think she was a hooker. She looked like a hooker.
There, it's okay. Drink some wine and go back to your happy place.
Ellie walks up to Jake and looks into his eyes.
What?
Yeah, still you.
This is actually sarcasm. It's Ellie checking Jake's eyes and seeing how dilated they are. She doesn't approve of his drugs, but she knows that if she disapproves, he'll snap her in half and have sex with both halves. So instead, she offers information. Anything to do with Pretty Boy will be at the Mud Springs Canyon, including Brandy, this booby woman who works for him. Jake offers up his services to work for Pretty Boy. Brandy agrees if he can win the race, of course. So he does. His first job is to get a bike belonging to a man called Orson from the mines. Naturally, all the mine clones want to fight, so Jake massacres a lot of them. Eventually, he gets to the chief clone, who he tells, "I'm not here to kill you."
The miner tells Jake that Orson lives near the graveyard, where some guys are peeing on Mikey's grave, so he kills them. Orson storms out of his house and a drunk skank called Gemma says this.
Out of my goddamn way!
You're the devil!
And she tells Jake where he keeps his keys, so Jake gives her blood alcohol poisoning, or spiked drink, or whatever, and she dies, because who's going to call help for her?
Orson, the Chief God clone, because he's identical to everybody else, notices that his bike has been stolen and chases after him. Interestingly, killing Gemma like that is classed as saving her in the game's morality, so Jake and his drugs have this insane chase. He heads to Tyrell's and asks for explosives to be put on Orson's bike. Surprise, surprise, that involves a side quest to find a private named Vanderbilt who worked under Tyrell and has gone missing. Vanderbilt was selling drugs, but who knows if it is Vanderbilt? Everybody looks the same! Either way, he gets mauled by a mounted turret that the druggies had hanging about, and Jake kills everybody. Jake breaks the bad news to Tyrell and gets his explosives, then sells the bike to Brandy. Jake follows her with Mac and blows up the bike.
This reminds me of GTA, which I would rather be playing right now. I mean, the mounted gun sections of GTA suck, but are amazing compared to this.
Stop being so negative, we're nearly done. The explosion lures Pretty Boy out, who is basically a pirate's Two-Face, and again he melts into view. How messed up is Jake? Jake knocks him out and interrogates him. This interrogation boils down to Jake finding out that his dad died ages ago. He didn't leave, Mac lied. How very Obi-Wan. The orders from Caesar were to eradicate every Conway, starting with the dad, the mum, and working down. They don't know why, but orders are orders. Pretty Boy really hypes up how spectacular Caesar is.
He's stronger than you, he thinks faster than you, and he is 10 steps ahead of you every single minute of every single day. And he was built without an off switch.
He punches Pretty Boy out and his arms fall out of the restraints.
They weren't very good restraints, were they?
This is probably the most realistic part of the game. Have you tried tying someone up while on an acid trip?
Well, I can't say I have.
Manchester is wild.
What?
Nothing. Pretty Boy has the tattoos of all of his victims on his arm, and Jake sands them off, and it's on! Jake and Mac pay their final respects to Mikey, and Jake uses his somber time not to think of Mikey at all, and instead asks Mac about his dad. It turns out that Jake's dad got really drunk while racing and gambling. He raced Caesar and put his girlfriend on the line, Jake and Mikey's mum. He lost the race but refused to hand her over, enraging John, the man who became Caesar. Toledo, Jake's dad, took the kids to Mac and then went off with their mother, perhaps to try and escape. Later that night, somebody came to Mac telling him that they'd both been caught and killed. As the story ends, they get blown up. Somehow that doesn't kill them though, because it never happened. Perhaps it was a flashbang, who knows, it's very bad for your ears though. Either way, Jake gives chase, or tries to escape, which of course ends up with all sorts of crazy things happening. He takes Mac to Ellie for protection.
Really? What's that gonna do? Shall I chalk that up to another bad drug decision?
Yes. Jake then nips off for an errand to help Tyrell, and when he gets back, Mac has been strung up and killed. He does what any drug-insane man would do, and kind of reacts.
No! No!
That's a reaction, right? Look at how he looks at us, breaking the fourth wall, pleading for help. There's a note attached to Mac which provides a date and time to meet Caesar. It turns out that Ellie is Caesar's daughter, but she doesn't approve of him. She heard of what her dad did to Jake's family and went to see if it was all true. And that's how she met Mikey. She says that she felt like they had a family at last, and also that Jake was the only person strong enough to get to her dad, so kind of using him there, but whatever.
Caesar himself is like Kurt Russell mixed with the singer from Steel Panther. He's weirdly prancy and dancey. He monologues why he doesn't like Jake's dad, which we already know, so it's time to kill him. When Jake gets to him, he escapes on a bike, so armed with a rocket launcher and Ellie, off they go after him. At one point though, she goes extremely limp, as if she's passed out. Maybe she kept getting caught in the exhaust of the rocket launcher? Oh yes, that'd explain it.
She eventually wakes up and helps Jake with some bike-based acrobatics, which culminate in him destroying both of Caesar's eyes before he drives off a cliff. As he hangs there, clinging to his bike, Jake throws his lighter down and ignites the fuel, blowing Caesar up. And that's how it ends. No real redemption for Mikey, no music over the credits, nothing.
They literally do not mention Mikey once during the ending. That's the point of the game. Vengeance for Mikey. But nothing. He gets mentioned maybe 3 or 4 times during the whole game, all told. It's really quite remarkable.
And if I hadn't banged on about it enough during this video, that's how we know that Jake's quest was never really about Mikey. It was about escaping the mundanity of life. It was about having an excuse to kill, to do drugs and to fuck and to race. Do you think he's not going to go and screw Ellie and then kill more people? Of course not. But that's the game's masterstroke, because like Barry kept saying, as he played, he thought of all the things he'd rather be playing. Road Rash, GTA, God of War, COD, you name it. Right to Hell is reminiscent of many, many other games. Each one does it better, and as you play, tied to the game, you think of all the things you'd rather be doing. It's kind of like Jake. Jake went back to civilian life, but did he want to be there? Nope. Most people playing Right to Hell will identify with Jake because they'll be escaping the game and give in to their urges to just do something else. Right to Hell isn't a good game. It's not meant to be. It's a sacrifice. It came out last year just before the next generation of the Xbox One and PS4 as a reminder of all the great games we've had during the 7th generation. It's easy to become cynical about what we have, but playing Right to Hell reminds us of just how good we've got it. By playing Right to Hell, it's a sacrifice of a game that lays down and says, wouldn't you much rather be playing a game that does QTEs better, that does fighting better, that does driving better? And you'd say yes, and then you'd go and play those games and you'd be happy.
But we're too smart for that, right?
No, Barry, we're too drunk. Bless you, Eurotechnics, or whoever you are, for reminding us, for ploughing your time and money into a game with 3-pronged story. One is the self-justifying drug rampage masked as a brotherly vengeance. The second is to place us parallel to Jake, to make us take our journey so that we can break down and actually play and enjoy something else. It's a noble sacrifice because, let's be honest, how many people have played this game to completion?
Not many. But what's the third message?
Don't do drugs or you'll end up doing all that Jake did, and that's not cool.
Oh, too late for that.
But you know what? I'm glad you made me play this. I've overcome my demon and I've seen that actually I don't have it so bad. There are so many great games out there and it's easy to take them for granted. People, if you take nothing else away from this, then just think of all the great experiences you've had and be thankful. We're lucky to have such talented people designing the games we love.
Or perhaps we've been talking bollocks this whole time. What?
Couldn't you have reached that conclusion without playing Right to friggin' Hell?
Well, you challenged me to find the plot.
I'm 17 and stupid, I didn't know.
Well, first, you're not 17.
Shut up!
You look like you enjoyed that.
Fox face.
Now, what the episode is.
Do we have to do it again?
Yes. Just one more go.
Right, so.
So,
Oh, wow!
Perfect! Perfect, that was perfect!
sorry.
Yeah, the plastic.
That was perfect pain!
Wow.
Oh.